So, MaXXXine. Your agent tells us you're quite a popular name in adult film and entertainment. Is that correct? I'm curious, did you always want to be in that line of work?
I always wanted to be famous.
If you need to read off the sides we gave you, just go ahead, all right?
I know the lines.
She turns to the camera and, through her trauma, addresses the lens directly.
MaXXXine, the third and potentially final movie in the trilogy. I know it's the last in the trilogy, but, you know, you never know. I think they even said that, like, they have an idea for a potential fourth film, but they don't know if they're going to do it. So, we'll see. But for right now, the potential final film. So, I've seen both X and Pearl. I believe, reviewed them both here. And I really enjoyed those. So, of course, I was looking forward to this. And I will say that this is a very cool and intriguing third installment. And it has a, like, very 80s detective feel to it. Where something I do like about the series is that each movie feels very different, even though they're in the same trilogy. They have the same feel to it, but they feel very different movies. So, like, with X, that feels more like a Texas Chainsaw type film mixed to a porn. Pearl is more of a psychological, almost like American Psycho, set in, I believe it was the 20s or like the late 1910s, which personally, Pearl is my favorite. And with MaXXXine, it's more of a crime detective, like noir type story with slasher elements in there. So it kind of brings that, like, it doesn't, like with X, it's more like it feels more like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre type feel. Pearl feels more like an American Psycho. This MaXXXine, I would feel, I think, has more of a, maybe like, not really like, not Scream, but, it does have like a slasher element to it. It's really hard to kind of compare it to another slasher film because of the detective stuff going on in it, which the detective stuff kind of plays front and center, which may, upset fans, because I've seen people talk about, like, they think that this one is just a huge letdown. I disagree. It could have been, I do agree it could have been a little better, but I definitely don't hate it. I definitely do like it. I do really like it, actually. So this takes place, I think, 6 years after the events of X. MaXXXine has officially made it into Hollywood. She's trying to get basically her foot in the door, and she's booked a pretty much slasher, pretty much almost like a slasher porno film. But then the killer is on the loose and is targeting her. So now it's up to her to try and see who the killer is. So it becomes kind of like a whodunit kind of thing, which is cool. It kind of has that, like, Clue aspect to it. But the slasher stuff definitely kind of takes a back seat in some spots, because I feel like they're more concentrating on the detective and crime stuff, and even like the acting part, which I understand, but the slasher stuff kind of takes a back seat. So that may disappoint some people. I know it has, but like I said, each movie in this trilogy, they're very different movies. So, you kind of have to know that this trilogy is going to go multiple different ways. And it's really not interested in trying to repeat itself, which I appreciate. So, as much as as much as this is Ty West's trilogy, it's all on Mia Goth's shoulders. And I'd seen her in other stuff like Infinity Pool, where she's just, her character in that movie, I was just like, I really hate you, but you're so good at it. You're so good. But this trilogy, she absolutely shines, much like you're going to be a movie star. Like, she shines like a star because this is her trilogy. This is her series. And it also just shows that she has an incredible acting range, which is awesome. Also, a lot of the supporting cast, just a lot of them kind of stole the show in certain aspects, like Kevin Bacon, or even Giancarlo Esposito, which I never watched Breaking Bad. I know, blasphemy, but the other stuff that I've seen him in, I was like, you're really good. Like, you're really good. And I was kind of expecting him to be almost like a villain in this. And I'm just going to say this. No. Which surprised me. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, that's kind of cool. All right. Elizabeth Debicki. I'd seen her in other stuff like Tenet, and like she was in Guardians of the Galaxy. But the first movie I saw her in was Cloverfield Paradox, which that wasn't good. But she really does a really good job. And yeah, a lot of the supporting cast, they really do a good job. And I was like, wow, like, okay, they're kind of stealing the show a little bit. So yeah, that was really cool. Also, I do like how each movie has a unique editing style, which I believe Ty West edited himself. I know he edited this and he edited Pearl, but I don't remember on X. I think he did. But, like with X, it felt like a movie from 70s. From Pearl, it felt like a movie from like you would see like in the 20s. In certain spots, like a colorful film. Pearl almost felt like a colorful musical, the way it was setting stuff up, and it was really cool. This has like a lot of like the 80s style all over it, even down to like the soundtrack, which I love. I love the 80s music, so I was the one in there going like, I know that song. That's a good pick. So I really like how which also helps develop each film as it feels like its own movie, even though you kind of forget it is supposed to be part of a trilogy. So, do I think that this is a bad movie? Absolutely not. Is it my least favorite? Yes. Yes, absolutely. Like I said, Pearl is my favorite. X was my favorite until I saw Pearl. And I was like, I like more psychological stuff. And I love American Psycho, and this feels like another version of that. So I like this one more. And X would be second, and it's like really tight, but psychological American Psycho, if you pitch me a movie like Pearl was pitched me as American Psycho meets Wizard of Oz, and I was like, I'm sold. Like, you got me. I was going to see it anyway because I really liked X, but, you got me anyway. So, I do think that this is my least favorite. It's definitely my least favorite of the trilogy, but there are some really cool parts of this. Like, they shot on like Universal's backlot and Warner Brothers backlot. So if you've been to both of those studios, it's almost like was it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the meme where DiCaprio keeps pointing? It's almost like that. So if you've been to those places, you'll see like certain spots where you're like, hey, I saw that before. Like, hey, I've been there. Like, hey, I've been there. So it's kind of cool. So I also like how they don't shove those in your face, and they actually kind of make that part of the movie. So You know, it's in the trailer, but they're at like the Bates Motel at Universal's backlot, and yes, they talk about it, but then that's pretty much it. So yeah, it was very cool, and as much as this was my least favorite of the trilogy, I still give it a great. This whole trilogy is really good. And if they do end it with this one, I think it would be a good conclusion. And yeah, I highly recommend the trilogy, the X trilogy. And no, it is not X and then X2 and then you go and watch Triple X. It's very confusing, but that's what the internet's for.